Testing, testing, check 1, 2. How we doing? All right, let's do this thing. Boom, there I am. Hello and welcome to Catalyze Academy. And we're gonna be doing a little bit of Ableton office hours, which basically just means I'm gonna be sitting here hanging out, talking about music stuff with you guys, and you are more than welcome to come in and ask questions about literally anything you want, as long as it's somewhat related to making music. But yeah, that's kind of the plan. That's what we do here on Mondays. Some days I have stuff planned for the day, and sometimes I just come in here just with nothing and I just figure it out as I go. But today I do have something planned, which I do occasionally, which is I want to talk a little bit about some plugins. It's not often I talk about plugins on the channel, mostly because I don't use plugins that much anymore. However, occasionally some plugins come into my life and they're cool and I want to talk about them. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to specifically be talking about a particular brand of plugin, which is Noise Engineering. If you don't know about Noise Engineering, they are a fantastic company. They primarily make modular hardware. So hardware or modular synthesizer stuff, which is fantastic. I have a couple of their modules. I have actually quite a few of their modules in my modular setup. However, it sounds like a bit of a cold. I don't have a cold. Does my voice sound weird? Maybe it sounds a little scratchy. I don't know. As long as the actual audio is okay, it's fine. If my voice just sounds weird, then maybe I just sound weird. What's up, After Party? How you doing? But yeah, Noise Engineering, fantastic company. They make hardware, really like their hardware stuff. And they have been starting to translate some of their stuff into software, which is fantastic because some people can't afford all the hardware stuff. And I have known about it for a little while. I think they came out this summer, or they came out a couple months ago. And I've been procrastinating downloading them. And then I went to the website the other day and I downloaded them. And they have 3 plugins that are free, which is fantastic. The free plugins. And I've been playing around with a little bit, and they're super cool. If you like distortion, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people who watch the channel do. I do a lot of stuff about distortion. If you like gritty sounds, if you just like really kind of like off kilter waveforms, they're fantastic at it. That's one of the things I like about their hardware. And in their software, some of their software are emulations of piece of hardware they have, and some are kind of newer things, or they're kind of loosely based off them. One of them is based after the microboot. I think After Party you were talking about Noise Engineering and microboot, or Atreya did a collaboration. One of them is based off of that. So 2 of them are synthesizers, and one is just a distortion device. So I was gonna just go ahead and start going through those and talking about them and kind of letting you know what they can do. And I would encourage you guys to download them. They're free. But as always, if you guys have any questions about anything that is not related to these plugins, we can also get into that as well. You're more than welcome to just ask whatever you want. So the Runa is they always have really weird names, which sometimes is cool, but sometimes kind of annoying because it's hard to pronounce them. The Runa is a distortion device, which is probably the best of the 3. If I had to pick one of these 3 that I would like recommend you go check out, then Runa is the one. It's fantastic distortion. What's up, Bay Goods? How you doing? I don't use Live Enhancement Suite. I've known about it for a long time, and I've never gotten around to checking it out. So unfortunately, I don't have any thoughts or feedback on it. But I'd be curious to hear what other people think. So the Runa is the distortion device, and then the Sync I don't know. The Sync and the Vert are both different synthesizers that have really cool oscillators that we're going to check out first. So we'll start with the Sync. So this is the one that is not based off of anything. This is like an original. It's not based off the hardware. It's not based off anything else. And it's a pretty straightforward synthesizer. You're not going to see like lots of crazy options for like modulation and things like that. But it's not the micro freak, it's micro, or not the micro brute, it's micro freak. Yeah. But as you can see, it's got this kind of like you see slowly shifting waveforms that you can play around with, and there's essentially 3 different waveforms here. So let's go ahead and make sure the audio is sounding all right. Might turn that up a little bit. Cool. So 3 different waveforms here. We have our super, and we have one control here that allows us to think of it kind of like a wavetable that has like a weird moving phase on it. You can see that like the waveform keeps shifting. And then as I scroll through this, we get a bunch of different kinds of waveforms there. And I might turn this up even more. I get a volume control here. So it has like a lot of really nice tones to it. Like this area I like a lot. It's almost kind of like a bit crushy, kind of sound like triangle wave. It's pretty sick. And then we just have the plane, which is going to start off just as a sine wave, shift through some basic waveforms, and does a bunch of like wave folding as you go up higher. And we got the noise, which is not just noise. It like starts off pretty mellow, but you can hear it shifting, and then it gets more noisy as you just turn it up. So it's basically just 3 different waveforms with one control that allows you to shift through a bunch of different kind of like customization of that. This is the most straightforward of all the devices too. So this is a good one to learn on if you're just getting used to it. We got a basic volume ADSI here, nothing too crazy. You can just control that stuff there. And then we have like a few extra controls over here. So we have like a filter. Let's go to the super. Let's go here. So first up, we have a dry wet on the filter. And then we have filter frequency, resonance. And then we can add envelope to the filter. To make it move around. And we can choose different filter types: slow pass, high pass, band pass. So pretty straightforward in terms of like filter controls. And then we have these amazing chorus controls. I really like these. And this is like some of the cool things that noise engineering does. It's like the filter and envelopes are like no big surprises here, but the waveforms themselves and how they change and shift is really cool and interesting. And then the chorus is also really interesting. Like it sounds different than a lot of other choruses out there. Turn the filter off, which I love. And then the other chorus. So if you're going for that big kind of like phase moving chorus kind of sound, it sounds fantastic. So just those controls by themselves end up making it sound pretty huge and really interesting. So I was pretty impressed by it. Again, there's not like a million options in here, but you don't necessarily need it. And they have a bunch of cool controls in here for like nudge, which is like a really minor randomization control. So it randomizes it, but just a little tiny bit on all of the parameters. And then just a full randomization control. Which I found is really cool. And there's presets in here, so you can go through different, folders here for different kinds of presets. Really kind of dark, really kind of gritty sound to it. I'm a big fan, nothing too crazy. And then there's not a lot of settings in the configuration, although I do like you can change the color of it, which is pretty sweet. And that's basically it. And then you can MIDI map all the parameters. And also the nice thing about if you're using it in live, if you just open up this little guy here, all the controls are down here. So it's really easy to automate it. And like, say you want to apply a little bit of Where is my LFO? A little bit LFO to one of these controls. So like that's one of the big downsides here. There's not a lot of modulation built into it besides the envelope. So if you want to add an LFO, you can just use the live LFO and say map it to the tone control, right? So now it's moving up and down there. And give it some nice kind of like shifting. Let's get less release on that and less decay. So you can get some nice motion just by using other kinds of modulation on top of it. So even though it's lacking some of those features, because we're using it in live, we already have access to other LFOs and extra envelopes if we need to and all that kind of stuff. So pretty straightforward, really easy to use. One of those ones that I'm like, I just need some kind of like dark cyberpunk kind of sounds. This might be a really good one to go for, and just like hit the reset button a bunch of times until it comes up with something cool, and then save it and then modulate a little bit, and then I'm more or less there. Oh, you can automate the color. That's cool. I didn't see that before. I want to apply that to the color. Sweet. All right. But yeah, that's kind of the idea for the sync varior, whatever it is. Oh no, it just crashed live. Let's try that again. Apologize for the messy desktop. Yeah, the interface is cool. It's I get a lot of their stuff is it feels really similar to their hardware, like in terms of what they're doing with it, which is kind of cool. So if you're used to using their hardware, then all right, it's still crashing. Let me try it one more time. If you're used to using the hardware, it's like pretty similar to what you're going to get with the hardware, which is nice. Oh, there we go. No, let's not open that last one. Sweet, there it is. Sorry about that. That one did crash once before, so maybe there's some stability issues with it, but that's just something you're gonna have to work with. Part of the deal when it comes to third-party plugins. All right, so the other one I wanted to mention is the Varior. If anybody knows how to say that, I would love some assistance. Very similar interface, very straightforward, just black and neon, which again is fantastic. ADSR is exactly the same. Volume and filter are more or less exactly the same. However, the oscillators are different. So it's like a slight variation on it. And I think this one sounds a lot better. The other one sounds good, but it's kind of simple in terms of how many different sounds you can get with it. This one has a lot more variety to it. And this is the one that is using the same technology or algorithms or envelopes oscillators as the Microfreak. So if you're using the Microfreak, this is what they're using in that. So we have three different options here for different kinds of waveforms, and we have three different controls for them. So I'm gonna start with my favorite one, which is the harmonic one, or harm. This one has a really interesting phase shifting that it's doing. If we turn up the flavor control, you're gonna hear it to start to phase with itself. It's really velocity sensitive. So you can hear it's kind of doing that almost like flanging kind of control. And it slows down as you change the flavor. And then it kind of goes up and sounds like that as you go up with it. which I think sounds really cool, and I think you can do a lot with that. And then we have two other controls: the tang control. Let me start through here. This adds this kind of like harmonization to it. You can't hear live? Let me see what's going on here. All right, that should be working now. Cool, all right. Let me know if that's not working anymore. But in case you missed that last part, yeah, let's see if that fixes it. The flavor control is going to add that little phasing, almost kind of beating sound all the way up and down there, which I think sounds really cool. And the tang is going to add like a little like harmonization to it. So it's pretty sweet. And then the noise control, obviously going to add a little bit of noise. It also makes it a lot louder. Almost adds this kind of like clipping at the end. I find a little bit of noise goes a long way, though. You don't need a whole lot of it. Yeah, the parameter names are great. So that's the harmonic. The Saw X is also fantastic. All three of these I think are really cool. So if we start, it's just going to be a saw wave. Let's turn it up. We get multiple saw waves in one cycle. And then the tang over here does this very kind of like digital kind of distortion to it, which sounds really cool. And the noise does what you imagine it's going to do. Although the noise here is really subtle unless you crank it. But great if, again, if you want to do that kind of like noisy lo-fi kind of thing, could be really cool. Atch Party definitely sounds like something you'd be into. And then the bass one I think also is really cool. I think this might be my second favorite after the harm. But it's going to start in this kind of like weird sine wave. And then shift almost like a triangle, saw wave kind of thing. And I love the visual feedback. I love that you can see the waveform here, because otherwise I'd be like turning this and be like, what is this doing? What does tang actually mean? And being able to see it down here is fantastic. And this also has noise. Sounds great. And then once again, we have the filters, as far as I can tell, work basically exactly the same way. Envelope works basically the exact same way. And then I think the chorus is pretty similar, if not the same too. Really, really cool for just like sound design. If you're going to be like scoring something, like scoring a film, sounds great for that kind of thing. think both of these synths really just come alive once you get into the chorus and really getting that in there. And we haven't filtered anything yet. Yeah, and then again, this also has a bunch of presets in here, so you can choose different folders for different presets and see what you like. Yeah, I really like it. Release is too long. There's also this shush button here. It'll just cut it off. So if you have like a note that gets stuck, you can just hit this and that'll end the note. Yeah, and then configuration is the exact same thing. We can change the color. We can also change, like, you know how when I'm moving these knobs around, it adds this little thing that moves, or if like you can see it kind of like does this little trippy effect. You can make that really more noticeable. So if I change something, the whole thing gets all distorted and crazy looking. Let's turn that down a little bit. And then of course you can change the color. You can make it polyphonic. If you make it monophonic, you can change the legato. And then same thing here. You can just MIDI map all this stuff. You can change what MIDI CCs control what. You can turn off the velocity, keep velocity turned on. Really just cool synth. Like it a lot. However, both of these are not nearly as good as the distortion effect. Yeah, so the nudge is going to randomize it, but only little tiny bits. So if you find something that's kind of cool, but you just want to like spice it up a little bit, you can just hit this a bunch of times, and you can see it changes things just tiny bits. And then if you want to just totally randomize it, the randomize button on both of these two that I've taken a look at is fantastic, because there's not that many parameters, it's really hard for it to just go wrong. So I've been having a lot of fun just like random button. Is it cool? No, new one. Let's make it not monophonic. Let's go back to polyphonic. Yeah, just great for just fun, easy sound design. If you guys have seen my stuff before and you're just kind of aware of the kind of things that I like to talk about on the channel, I think sometimes people think that the more features a synthesizer has, the better it is. But the more features a synthesizer has, the more time you have to spend making something sound cool. And one of the things I like about both of these two synths I've been talking about is, oh, what's up, Gary? How you doing? And Steve-O and anybody else who's just joining us. The thing I like about both these synthesizers is that you're very limited in options. You have, in this one, 3 different kinds of oscillators, 3 controls for those oscillators, basic ADSR with a curve control, volume, filter controls, and chorus. That's it. However, as you can hear, just by hitting the random button a few times, the diversity of the sounds this can make is really wide. So that to me is a sign of good synthesizer design. And I started at the beginning of the stream talking about how like I love Noise Engineering as a company. They make really cool things that sound different than your generic, 2 oscillator synthesizer or whatever, your generic wavetable synthesizer. They have like this little bit of like interesting tonal quality to them, which is why I bought their hardware and why now I'm showing you guys that they have software versions. So I definitely recommend checking them out. They're free. Go to noiseengineering.com to find them and download them, and they're super worth it. However, the one I actually really wanted to talk about was the Runa. This guy right here is an absolute beast. So let's actually do something different. Let's do a wavetable so we can get some really nice clean waveforms. And we're also going to use an oscilloscope. So Runa is probably one of the best distortion plugins I've ever seen. It has lots of different kinds of distortion, and you can customize different amounts of all of them, including filters. It has phase controls, folding, saturating, the doom control, the buzz control. It just is like, if you're into noise, if the name Merzbow means anything to you, then you should download this. This is just like a fantastic tool, and it is very over the top. So if you're into like gentle amounts of saturation and like little tiny bits of noise, this may not be the distortion for you. However, if you just want to totally mess up a sound and make it sound totally entirely different, I love this guy, partially because the random and nudge buttons work really well, but also just like it has a lot of things built into one little tiny package, and they all sound really cool. So to test this out, we're going to start with not a saw wave, and we're just going to start with just a sine wave, something like that. Let's get the oscilloscope lined up here. And some of this can be annoying to get it to stand still. There we go. So we're just going to be dealing with just a straight up sine wave. So I'm going to turn on the distortion. That's what it did to my sine wave with just the default settings on there. So also, I guess we got some new people just joining us right now. Right now, I'm just talking about these cool free plugins I just downloaded. But if you have questions about anything related to music production, feel free to toss it in the chat, and we'll get to it pretty shortly. So I'm going to play around with some of the different settings here just to kind of show you what you can do, but just it's insane how many different things it's doing to your sound all at the same time. So to start off, we have basic volume in, volume out, just gain staging stuff, which is really handy on any kind of distortion. And then we blend, which is just dry wet. You'll also notice it has a built-in envelope. It's going to start off and it's going to move, right? You can even see it down here. I'm not sure what controls that envelope or how that works, but it's cool because it's not just like straight up noise, like it changes and then sustains. So first off, we have the overdrive. Which straight off the bat, I love, sounds great. We have a phase control, which I'm not sure if YouTube gets the full stereo field there, but it changes the phase on your left and right, so you get this like interesting shifting between the left and right side of your speaker. But I'm not sure if YouTube gets that from OBS in stereo. And then we have a fold control. Which again, sounds awesome. Can get really over the top if you want. You can do little amounts of it if you want. The center control. As you see, it's like shifting our waveform around a little bit in either direction. And then we got a saturate control. It's a saturator. I'm not sure why it goes in either direction, but I'm curious to find that out. Awesome. Yeah, Gary, I haven't had a chance to watch your concert yet. So I've been helping Gary out with his live setup, and he just did a really big concert, and they videotaped the whole thing, and I'm really stoked to see the video, but I haven't had a chance yet. So Gary, we'll talk soon. So saturate control. So I guess this desaturates it a little bit, so it actually chills it out as you go to the left side. Yeah, this is a Max for Live oscilloscope that I just downloaded off of maxforlive.com. It's free. It works. It does the job. Really handy for doing stuff like this when you're like trying to figure out like, what is this knob doing to my sound? It helps to be able to see what's going on. Like start with the sine wave, run through something, and then use the oscilloscope to just kind of test out like how it's actually shifting things. I'm a very visual learner, so it helps me to be able to see how the waveform is changing. We got an octavizer control. So that's doing a lot of the work right now. Let's actually tone both of these guys down. So that's just gonna make it louder. And then we can hear the overdrive and the fold a little better. And I believe I read somewhere on their website that the overdrive control can make it 128 times louder or something like that. It's something insane. So we can hear the folding control. We can play with the phase. Yeah, so all these sound really cool to me. The doom control, the last two, the doom and the buzz get really, really crazy. All right, let's turn up the doom a little bit. Oh, it's pretty subtle if I go like that, but if I turn these guys up a little bit, like now we're getting some like real doom music, which I love. And then with the buzz control. So you can start to hear like between all these different kinds of distortion, you can mix and match different amounts and just take a sine wave and turn it into almost any wave, not any waveform, but just lots of different kinds of crazy noise. So yeah, and then we can dry wet it. I love it. It's like that by itself, I would keep that as a preset and just use that for just all kinds of different sound design. What's up, Wix Tricks? So you're asking, Ableton's default template opens with random track codes each time. Also, could have for our own templates. So I've talked about this on stream before. I wish you could, I wish you could set it up so that you could exclude colors from the random colors. Like I will never use this row or this column of colors at all. I just don't like browns in any of my music production. So I wish I could delete these colors from here. I've requested it from Ableton for a long time, and I don't think it's a high priority for them. But I agree. I think that you should be able to customize kind of the random, like you should be able to control the randomized colors a little bit. You can just make templates with colors in them, and then you're good to go. And that saves you a lot of time and effort. But yeah, I wish the random colors, you had a little bit more control over them. It's like a little thing, but it makes a big difference for me when I'm like just making lots of tracks and doing lots of things. I just don't want brown to show up in there. So yeah, so mix and match all these different kind of controls and just get like these insane all just kind of different distortion out of it. So super easy to use, really fantastic. All of them sound really cool. I'm just going to keep on playing around with it. And then I haven't played around with the filter tracking, filter type, and the flow a whole lot. I'm assuming mobile means the filter moves around a bit more. And filter types, I have no idea what these words mean, nor what they actually mean in terms of the sound. It's probably two different filter types, and then this is like the crossover for them. I'm not sure. I should probably read the manual. And then you can, of course, randomize it with the nudge or just totally randomize it. The random here is great. Like, I don't know if you like distortion, to me, all three of those sounded awesome. That sounds so cool. And if they're like a little too heavy, you can like dial back, especially the doom and the buzz. They all sound really cool. I have not tried it on a drum rack yet. I will definitely try that in a moment. Yeah, like this is just a sine wave. Like we're doing nothing else besides running a sine wave through this and hitting the same note over and over again. And it sounds like that. So this thing I think is just like, this may be my new favorite plugin, like ever. So I'm definitely like, I haven't made any noise music in a while, but I think that with just using this, I might make a song that's just this and sine waves and like maybe some drums, and that might be my whole track. So this is probably, I haven't filmed the video yet, but I'm probably gonna make a video on this for the channel real soon. So it'll probably be mostly kind of rehashing what I'm doing here, but fantastic. Like that even sounds cool. Love it. Let's give it a little unison too and see what that does. Yeah, I'm in love with this device. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are enjoying this too, because I was like, I was trying out these plugins and I was like, this is the one. And like, if I gave it something a little bit more, like, let's find one we like. That's kind of cool. And like, you can play with the synth to make it do different things, and then just go nuts with it. The other thing that I really like about this is that in the presets, just the names of the categories, like the folders of presets, I love. It's annihilation, despair, destruction, flames, haunted, incineration, pain, stab. Those are names of the folders for the distortion, different kinds of distortion, which I think is perfect. Like, that sounds great. Like, that's pretty sick. Yeah, so I'm a big fan. I'm going to keep using this. Like I said, this might be my plugin I use for quite a while for distortion, which is too bad because I just made a video about distortion. So I don't want to make too many videos in a row about distortion, but I think this deserves some attention and some praise, because if you don't already know the company, if you don't know Noise Engineering as a company from modular stuff, then it's a little hard to find out about them. I think it seems like a lot of, I don't know a lot of like producers who are making just music with their computer that know about this as a company. So I want to kind of share the knowledge and share the info. And then same thing here. If we can change the color, we can MIDI map all this stuff, which is fantastic. So I may just get in here, get a bunch of LFOs and start MIDI mapping or modulating all this stuff to make some like really interesting noisy motion movement stuff. But yeah, let's try this on drums. I think that'd be fun. I want to try it on a kick drum too. So let's go ahead and make a new track, or let's put a let's go. Let's do the drum synth kick. I'll try a few different snares through it just to see what happens. Put that there and that there. And we'll do the drum synth hat just to see what happens. All right, so let's hear. Here's our kick drum by itself. Turn on the Runa. Perfect. You wanted to make some hard style. I already like that. What else can we do this? It's just so good. It just sounds so cool. this is pretty sick. The snare also sounds great. Yeah, I think I've found my new career as just a noise artist. So is the kick, and then let's hear the snare by itself. That sounds cool. Hi-hats going through it are not that cool. Not much I can do about that. Too much. All right, try randomizing it. I don't know if you guys are not into noise, then this might be too much, but I'm having a great time. Let's try it on like a really simple drum rack of like something like that and see what happens. Try that. All right, I'm gonna drive it down a little bit. Yeah, I wish there was here. All right, here's my biggest feature request for this guy. I wish there was something in between the nudge and the random. Like nudge moves everything in very small increments, and random moves everything in huge increments. I wish there was a dry wet for it where you could kind of like tone it, make it super huge or make it like, I don't know, maybe a 20% nudge instead of like a 3% nudge. I think that would be really cool because sometimes I get close to having something and then I have to like change everything, or just keep hitting random. I feel like I'm like Zach Hill from the Death Grips now. I'm just like just making terrible. That was too much. Just making super distorted beats. This is fantastic. This. The more I've been using it, the better it is. What's up, Kennedy? How are you doing today? I'm having a pretty good Monday so far. How about you? Yeah, a nudge percentage would be fantastic. Other than that, this is like the perfect distortion, I think. I want to learn more about the filter and how that works, so that's what we're going to do real quick. But other than that, I'm feeling like there's not much else here. It's great. I'm just going to make it. I wonder if you can like randomize the color. That'd be cool. And we're going to do that color. I wonder if the colors save the presets. Probably not. That would be sick too. All right, so we're gonna turn everything down, and we're gonna figure out how this filter is working. Yeah, it's been pretty warm here too. I live in Colorado, and there's been no snow yet, really, and it's very late in the year for there to be no snow. All right, let's get rid of this one. I'm gonna put this here. We're gonna go back to our, let's do like a triangle. And let's see, we're gonna turn the dry wet down. We're gonna turn everything down, and still, oh, it's because we have chorus on or use. All right, so we're not really getting I'm not getting a lot of distortion right now. Let's turn up the blend, change it a bit. We have filter level. That's like a dry wet on the filter. We have mobile filter. We have filter type. Don't know what the difference in those is. Still not quite sure how these filters are working. I was expecting this experiment to yield us some information about how these filters are working, but I am still confused. Seems like it's like a low cut. It's like getting rid of just the subs. So I turn that up, potentially. This is the Runa plugin by Noise Engineering. This is free. It's one of a set of 3 plugins they released not too long ago. And it does distortion, and it's fantastic, and you should definitely go ahead and download it right now. And they have 2 other synths that we looked at earlier in the stream, but this is the one I really wanted to talk about. Yeah, so filter there. Let's go back to this one. I still can't tell what the filter is doing. So Fossio appears to be cutting out the sub frequencies, but Cancilla, I have no idea what it's doing. I can't really hear it a lot. I wonder if we can hear it more if we like put more saturation on it or something. Yeah, you can hear it more when there's more stuff going on. Interesting. Yeah, you can hear it more sometimes than others. Yeah. All right. I'll have to look see if there's a manual or anything that explains kind of how these work. Sometimes with plugins like these, they just don't tell you, and there's like it just does stuff. Turn it and have fun with it, but what it actually does doesn't matter. But yeah, fantastic plugin. I'm going to be using this a lot, I think. This is like one of those, it's very rare that I get plugins that like get me excited to try out new things, and this is definitely one of them. But yeah, anybody have questions about either this plugin specifically or anything else related to music production with Live? I think it's probably enough of you just seeing me screw around here, because I will definitely just sit here and make noises all day if you want. But if anybody here has any questions, things they want to talk about, definitely just let me know in the chat. But yeah, let's play around with it a little more. So there are probably some plugins out there specifically for Acid Kennedy. The thing about Acid music is that it's all specifically based around one synthesizer, which is the TB303, made by Roland in the like mid 80s. And so the most traditional and classic way to make acid, yeah, Trixie, you can just put the question in the chat. But the most traditional way to make acid music is to get a TB303 or get something that emulates a TB303. Off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure there are TB303 plugin clones that are like they're just trying to sound exactly like the TB303. So that's really the place to get started. The other, if you don't want to use something that is like directly based off TB303, you just want to make some kind of like acidy kind of sounds. What you can do, at least when I think about acid, and I haven't made acid for a long time, so apologies if this is like not the most precise and exact way to do it. Really, a lot of what you're looking for is specifically a lot of resonance on your filter, and usually combined with like an arpeggiator. So you get these really fast kind of sounds that are just like the motion on the filter is moving up the or the motion on the filter is moving up and down, which is causing the resonance to move up and down and make that kind of like squelchy classic acid kind of sound. It'll probably sound really noisy, Trix. We can try it in a minute if you want. But I found one is usually plenty. But we can definitely test it out once we try and make some acid. All right, so I believe we're going to start with the saw wave or square wave here. Either one should be fine. And then we're going to just maybe play some around here. And so what we want is we want a plucky sound. And we want the filter frequency to move up and down with the each note that happens. So we're going to go to matrix, go to our filter frequency. We're going to turn up envelope 2 on our filter frequency. And we're going to make envelope 2 and you can hear like as you turn this up, that's how you get that kind of like classic acid sound. And depending on where you start your filter frequency, like that, right? So from here, it's mostly about customizing the amount of resonance that you want, the starting location for the filter frequency, and how far you want the filter to move up, right? Username, I don't own a 303, unfortunately, but this is kind of based off of my memory. This is kind of like the way I would approach making that kind of like acid 303 kind of sound. So yeah, so we're just starting with the square wave. Envelope 2 looks like this, although we can change it to make it really fast. Or a little bit longer. And then this is going to control how far it moves up and down. And this is going to be our starting point. So if you want it to be more of like a bassier kind of sound, we can keep this really low. Or if you want it to be a more high frequency, we can turn this up. Something like that, right? And then from here, put an arpeggiator on it. What tempo is acid normally at? It's like mid 120s, I want to say, but I don't know if it gets faster. Does it go to like 130s? And so now you can just like have this be on like 16th notes. You can move this around to kind of see where you want to start with it. You can move this around to control how far you want it to go. But the trick is really just crank up the resonance way higher than you normally would. If you go too high, it gets really annoying. It just sounds like birds. But and then other than that, I would probably like maybe add some unison and maybe add a little bit of saturation by using these different filter emulations. Yeah, 120, 150, that makes sense. So something like that. I wonder if you can even use, if you didn't want a lot of those kind of like lower frequencies in there, you could probably just use a bandpass instead. That's kind of what like I think of when I think of acid, is just like that really high resonance, an envelope moving the filter frequency to create that kind of squonky squeaking sound. And then just letting that do a lot of the work there. And then kind of like tweak it and play around with it from there. And just make sure you like, it actually sounds, it's interesting, when you switch to some of the other filter modeling modes here, it actually reduces a lot of that kind of squelchy filter resonance. So maybe keep it on the clean, and that gets you. And just play around with it like that. Yeah, so birds are essentially synthesizers. One of the really fun things to do when you're like getting into synthesis and sound design is like as you're walking around outside, like listen to the noises you're hearing and think about like, how would I make that sound with a synthesizer? Like what's happening there? Francis Prev has a really fantastic video. If you want to learn sound design, if you're at all interested in sound design at all, let's see if I can find the right video. I wonder if they took it down. Oh no. There it is. All right. This video right here, hands down, one of the best videos ever made about sound design. It's called "Listening: The Secret of Sound Design" by Francis Prev at Loop a couple years ago. He talks a lot about like learning how to do synthesis and sound design is just listening, right? Like hear things and then you can like break them down to their most basic forms and then translate that into oscillators and filters and envelopes and things like that. So I actually do this a lot when I'm listening to music, or even when I'm, like I said, when I go outside. You'll hear a bird and you hear like, oh, they're doing like a little bit of tremolo on their voice, like it's kind of fluttering, like it has a tremolo on it, and they're doing like a pitch up kind of thing, like a shape that looks like this. And you'll start thinking about sounds in terms of like pitch envelopes and volume envelopes and LFOs. 100%. So yeah, you can definitely recreate bird sounds with a synthesizer. Bird sounds are really hard, but you can make other sounds as well. Like if you hear a car alarm, like just think about how a car alarm sounds. Those are just waveforms with pitch envelopes. It's like, that's all it is. But if you haven't checked this out, check out this video. It's fantastic. But really great for just kind of sound design. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking when I'm doing acid stuff. I haven't made acid music in a long time, but to me, the trick is fast notes triggering an envelope or a filter frequency envelope, with really high resonance is what gives it that kind of sound. And that I think is what the TB303 was known for, was the filter had this, like, if you crank the resonance, it's had this like really nice sound to it. But yeah, there are probably tutorials out there, people who have made more acid in their lives than I have, who can probably give you more detailed information about it. But I don't know off the top of my head. I'm hoping someday acid will make a comeback. I feel like it's one of those, like, it's a very specific genre for a very specific time and place, and I feel like it's about due for a comeback. Sweet. Well, anybody else have any questions, things they want to get into, things they want to talk about? I know we wanted to do the 10 runas in a row experiment. I might not do 10 just because my CPU is a little sketchy while I'm streaming, but I'll do like 3 or 4 if you want to see what happens. All right, so we're going to randomize this one a bunch, randomize this one a bunch, and we'll do one more. Randomize that one a bunch. All right, I'm going to turn it down because it will probably be very loud, but this is 4 runas in a row on a sine wave. That's kind of cool. So there's like a release on the runa, and so the release of each runa is triggering the release of the next one. So when you let go, you get that cool little clicking at the end. Which is actually really cool. What happens if we randomize a few more times? Do we get anything cool in it? Yeah, just sampling that little bit of the resonance at the end there. Like, that'd be cool sound, like, for just sound design background stuff. Randomize this one. What if we run like a pitch envelope in here? Too many runas, I gotta get them out of the way. Yeah, kind of sounds like expected would. You probably are going to be getting more good out of one than a bunch of them together. But it was an experiment for science. But yeah, sampling that stuff at the end would be really cool, I think. All right, sweet. So yes, that was the noise engineering devices plus some other stuff. So if you guys have questions about that, let me know in the chat. Or if you have other things you want to talk about, let me know. I might go back to doing some more sound design with the vert, but let's get back to this guy. All right, I'm gonna turn the velocity sensitivity off because sometimes I just want to be able to hear it at a consistent volume. All right, let's turn the volume down a bit. It sounds like it has like a little bit of like built-in reverb too, which is kind of cool, even though there's no controls for that. I really hope so. Noise engineering has some really fantastic delays and reverbs that they also have in hardware, and I'm really hoping those and the Basimilis, which is another great oscillator they have, end up being in software because they're really cool as plugins. What's up, Nectar? How you doing? All right, so random question. VST3 plugins are Silicon native, but don't appear in Live even after pointing to the custom folder. They are invested in any solution. So, Nectar, I noticed this when the 11.1 beta came out, and that was one of the main reasons I stopped using the 11.1 beta, and I haven't looked into it since then. So I was assuming that in the more updated versions of the beta that they would have fixed that, and I'm guessing by your comment that they haven't. So my solution was just to wait it out and see if they fix it, and hopefully go from there. But I'm assuming that that's partially why the 11.1 beta is taking so long, is they're trying to figure out how to make sure those plugins get integrated into the software. So yeah, I don't have a solution for you, unfortunately, but I did encounter the exact same problem. I don't know if Ableton will ever add a master tuning knob. Yeah, it's definitely a live specific thing, Nectar. I think it's just they're trying to figure out their stuff. Whatever weirdness the Silicon brought to the table, they're trying to figure it out. Because I'm using one of the M1s, and it's driving me crazy because I want to use 11.1, but I also would like to have access to my plugins. Yeah, I think tuning like a tuning knob where you can change the note there is something we may see. Most of the solutions I found for that, at least in terms of live, have been just like Max for live devices that'll do that for you. So I know that there are options out there, but I don't know if it's a high priority. I can't speak for Ableton and the people who work there and the company. I've talked to people who work there, and I know people who work there, but I haven't heard them mention anything about wanting to do like a tuning knob so you can switch to different tunings. But we'll see. You never know with new updates. All right. It has this like really nice kind of 80s sound to it that I'm actually kind of digging. Kennedy, that is a huge subject, but we can definitely talk about it. So it depends a little bit on what your budget is and what you're looking to do with mastering. I think that if you are just wanting some like quick and dirty, like you got a track that's basically ready to go and you got a concert, or a set you're playing tomorrow night, and you just need something so you can just like play it out live and kind of see how it sounds. You can master with using just live devices. That's all you really need. So you can use things like the compressor, the saturator, the EQ8 for sure. Toss a few limiters on there, and like you can build a mastering chain with just live devices. And if you want to make them multi-band, you can make like multi-band racks, and then have like a multi-band saturator and a multi-band compressor and a multi-band EQ if you wanted to. So you can do it basically for free if you own Live. However, if you are looking to step up from that and kind of like build your way to the next level with it, I think Ozone is actually a really nice starting point by Isotope. I think Ozone is nice because it's kind of like a one-stop shop for mastering. You buy like one plugin and it has all the things you need for mastering. It's got the saturators, it's got the compressors, it's got the EQs, it's got the limiters, it's got everything in one place, which is really handy. So I for a long time just used Ozone, and I still use Ozone a bit for mastering. However, I'm kind of migrating out of Ozone for my mastering and moving more into using FabFilter plugins a lot for my mastering. So I'll be using things like Saturn as my saturator. I'll be using Pro Q as my EQ, Pro L as my limiter, Pro C as my compressor, using the FabFilter stuff to kind of like emulate, like whether you're using live devices or Ozone or FabFilter or a mix and match of whatever plugin compass you want, it's all kind of the same stuff. It's all the same, a compressor is a compressor and an EQ is an EQ. Some might have more features than others, and some might have less features than others, and some might be more visually easier to use than others, etc. But like they all will do the job for you if you want. So those are kind of like the 3 stages of mastering, I think, for most people, or what I recommend for people is start with the free stuff that you already have access to, which is the live devices. Learn the components of a mastering chain and like which kind of devices you like to use and how you like to use them, or like kind of learn the ins and outs with that because you don't need to spend money on it. And then once you're ready, either go Ozone or figure out third-party plugins that will do similar things that you really like, which for me personally is FabFilter. But like I said, you can mix and match. If you like, say you like a Sound Toys plugin for the saturation, you can use that and then mix and match that with FabFilter, and then you mix and match that with Ozone, whatever combination of plugins you like. But those are kind of like the 3 stages. And then the 4th stage would be hardware if you want to like really get into mastering, but that gets really expensive real fast. But to be slightly more specific than that, the order of operations for my mastering chain hasn't changed much in a long time. And I don't have a song here that's mixed but not mastered to show you, but I'll just show you kind of like what to look out for. What I start off with is EQ8, or just an EQ, doesn't matter. Any EQ, but specifically the first kind of EQ I'm going to be doing is if you go over to mode, there's this MS mode right here, which is mid-side EQing, which means you can have one EQ curve for the mid and one EQ curve for the side, which is kind of cool. So effectively what we can do here is that depending on how you did your mix, generally in your mix, a lot more of the low frequencies and a lot of like the vocals and things will be down the middle, and a lot of your other sounds will be more off to the side, right? So you'll have like your pads and backup instruments over to the side. So you can EQ them separately. So maybe I want a little bit more of these frequencies on the side and a little bit less of these frequencies on the side. And then I hit the button, and then I can maybe boost a little bit of like this area for some of my, my kick or something like that, the punch of my kick, and then maybe boost a little bit of this area for my vocalist, wherever my vocalist lives. Something like that, and then maybe cut off a little bit of the highs coming down the middle. So you can do this mid-side EQing where you get both in one place. Keep in mind, if you haven't done a lot of panning in your mix, this is not going to help you out a whole lot. So make sure you are panning in your mix first. Otherwise, this doesn't do a whole lot. Then after that, I like to do a little bit of saturation. So to do that, like I said, if you just want to use the live saturator, you can just run your track through the live saturator and like pick the settings that you like. A lot of times when I am mastering, I like to do multi-band effects. And do I have my multi-band somewhere helpful? Yeah, this is not the right one. Where's my other one? Where's the good one? I forgot where I saved it. Damn it. All right. We'll just do the bad one for right now. I'm just using the EQ3 for these, but realistically, we do phase cancellation for this. And I have a phase cancellation preset, but I can't for life of me remember where I put it. Which means we're just going to put a saturator here, and a saturator here, and a saturator here. So that way, if I play a sound, here's the lows of the sound, here's the mids of the sound, here's the highs, right? And then we can have different kinds of saturation and different amounts of saturation on different parts of the song. So multi-band saturation is what I do, although I don't use the EQ3 anymore. I use the phase splitting version of it, but we'll deal with that later. And then after that, I do multi-band compression. There are two ways to do this, in my opinion, at least with live devices. There's the multi-band dynamics, which will automatically give you one compressor for your highs, one compressor for the mids, one compressor for your lows. If you know how the multi-band dynamics works, then great, use that. However, it's a little bit weird because like your threshold is right here, and like your gain reduction or your what's it called? Your ratio is right here, which gets a little bit confusing. So if you're not comfortable with this interface, don't use this right off the bat because it's a little bit confusing, I think. If you're more comfortable with something like the regular compressor, we can do the same thing and use our multi-band template and just use it with the compressor. So we can have different amounts of compression on our lows, our mids, and our highs, like that. So just to review, we're starting with the mid-side EQ, then we're doing multi-band saturation, multi-band compression. Generally, what I'm looking for when I'm doing my compression here is about 1 to 3 decibels of gain reduction. And before you just had to eyeball this, but now it actually tells you the gain reduction here. So I'm looking for it to mostly be in that kind of like 3 decibel range of gain reduction, like that. And then I'll use the makeup gain here kind of to make back up the gain reduction I'm losing right there. Sweet. So that's what I'm gonna be doing there. And then after that, sometimes I'll do a more refined EQ with the EQ8. So sometimes I might have a situation where there's like very specific frequencies that are sticking out to me. So what I'll do is I will boost first to try to identify that frequency. And if you hit this little headphone button right here, it allows you to only hear the frequencies that you're affecting when you click on this. So if there's a certain frequency that I think is sticking out a little bit, say it's that one right there, I can identify it, make it really precise, and then turn it down, like that. This is not always necessary. This is generally only if there are certain frequencies that I don't like in there that I want to get in there. And then after that, I will do a little bit of like stereo width control, which is really fun. So once again, we'll do another multi-band template, and then use like a utility on each one of these guys. And I have all these already built out into racks, so I don't need to build it each time. It's just, for the sake of example, I should just kind of show you how it's done. So in the utility, there's a width control right here. Now, if you're using Ozone, it has this really nice vector scope, and you can see the width of everything, which is really cool. But this allows you to either move things closer to the center / make them mono, or move them out to the side. And again, I'm not sure if YouTube gets the stereo signal. I should probably test this out. But this will move it out more out to the side. So depending on how much panning and things you have, you could, for example, make the lows a little bit more towards the center. Make the mids, you could either widen them out a bit more or make them a little more towards the center. And you can make the highs a little bit wider if you wanted to. And then what you want to do there. And then the very last thing I'm going to be doing is adding a limiter. And the thing about the limiter is a lot of the limiter works great. However, one of the things I've been doing quite a bit when I've been doing mastering is instead of using one limiter and just cranking it through the limiter, I'm going to use two limiters back to back. And in Ozone, it's just called a maximizer, but it's basically the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this up. I'm going to keep this quiet, just going to really crank it up until I start to see this bounce up and down a little bit. That's kind of what I'm looking for, maybe a little bit less. And obviously, if this is a whole track, this whole mixed track, this wouldn't need to go up quite so high, and it'd be easier to hit that. So just maybe a little less there, just so it's barely moving on that one. And then on the next one, we're going to do the exact same thing. So that they're both barely moving, like you're getting like just a couple decibels on each one. And that's a fantastic way to get a lot more volume out of your track without overly squashing it. Because what a lot of people do is they will just crank it through the limiter so it looks like that, and then it sounds like garbage. So instead what we're gonna do is just a little bit on each one, so that each one doesn't have to work as hard, and so you don't get quite the same level of like that heavy over compression that people get with their masters. So yeah, so this mastering chain is actually based off of my Ozone mastering chain. So everything that we can do here, we can do in Ozone. And Ozone's nice because it's a bit more visual. You get more like visual feedback in terms of what's happening here. You also get like 4 bands for a lot of these guys instead of 3. But I've done masters with Ozone, and I've done masters with live devices, and I've come back and the live masters have sometimes sounded better, or at least close enough that you couldn't really tell the difference. So I'm a big fan of, it's not the tool that you're using, it's the knowledge and experience you put into it, right? So don't feel like you need to spend tons of money on crazy mastering devices. And to be totally honest, everybody's mastering chain is a little bit different. You could ask, 10 different people, and you might get 10 slightly different answers in terms of, what order they put their effects, how they like to process them, what they use, what they don't use, all that kind of stuff will vary fairly significantly depending on who you're asking. So yeah, I update this and change it every once in a while. And like I said, I've been doing Ozone or Live for a long time, and I'm kind of migrating out of these plugins and spending more time with the fat filter ones, which is something I'm planning on doing. I haven't been finishing a lot of music recently, so I've been mastering as much recently, but I'm going to start kind of like swapping out some of these guys, like for example, swapping out the live limiter with the Fat Filter Pro L, which is their limiter, but it's going to basically functionally going to be doing the same thing as these two. I'm still going to be turning things up and adjusting things to get the same kind of gain reduction and using 2 of them back to back. But as you can see here, like much more visual. It gives me more information, gives me a few more parameters to deal with, but it does exactly the same thing as this one does. Yeah, the FabFilter stuff is definitely like they're a company that I definitely support. I think that they make really cool stuff, and I think it works really well, and it's fairly easy to use, and visually you can just see it all, and like it's just nice. It feel they sound good, and they also feel good to work with, which I think is important. I know username. I saw your chat for a second, and then for some reason, I guess maybe you took it back. I don't know what happened. But yeah, that's kind of the basics of my mastering chain. It changes and grows and evolves as I experiment and try out different things with it, and it um yeah. Hopefully that answers your question. Wix, you just go to the noise engineering website, and then I think you need to make an account, and then when you just make an account, and it uh, from there, once you log in, you can download it. At least that's how I did it. No, no worries, username. Yeah, I want to do, once we get into the one song a week challenge that's starting in January, um, I'm going to be getting to the point where I'm just going to have to like make a bunch of, making a bunch of tracks. I'm going to have to like really streamline and dial in my mastering chain. So I haven't been making a lot of content about mastering because I feel like once I do, once I get a few more songs, just a few newer songs under my belt, I'm going to have a more updated opinions about mastering, and I want to wait till I do that a few more times before I start making videos about mastering, and then have to make new videos about mastering as I change my mind about things. Yeah, I think once you make an account, if you just maybe you go to either the shop page and you click on the thing and download it there, or I forget what link I followed to download it. All right, so we got this guy. Why is this so? Oh, I turned it down. It's got a little bit less release on here. All right, so you seem to be asking about I don't think he's finished the question yet, but he's gonna be asking about gain volume rules for producing and mastering, preparing and master. Together, live sound has different rules than production in some respects. What are some basic rules for preparing a live performance set with Ableton? That's a fantastic question. For the most part, the rules are pretty similar. However, it depends on your setup and what you're going to do. If you're going to be doing like a DJ set, you don't really need to worry about it so much, because when you're DJing, you're dealing with pre-mastered tracks, right? They're already mastered, they're already good to go. So you just kind of turn up the volume on your track so that it goes up to 0, and then the track should all be mastered to 0, and you're basically good. You don't need to worry too much about that. But if you're doing like an improvisational set, or you're doing like a live looping set, or you're doing, you're playing, you're playing tracks, you're doing stems, whatever. In that situation, you could master your stems if you want to, but that seems like a lot of work to me. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I think if you're going to be doing a 100% original track, or 100% original set where you're playing your own stuff and you're like playing stuff live, you're playing MIDI controllers, you're playing guitar, you're doing vocals, whatever, what I would do is probably put and not probably in my own situation when I'm doing something like this, is put a really generic mastering preset on your master. and that's it. And don't touch it. Just leave it there. Because if you're working with stems and you're working with stuff that's live, you're not going to be able to really master it. But here's the thing about mastering is that like if everything in your set is kind of mixed to the same level, all your stems are kind of mixed to the same level, and all your things you're doing live are kind of mixed to the same level, nobody's going to notice. It's not really going to be important. It doesn't make that much difference to anybody in the audience. So what I do is I have a really generic, really basic mastering preset that I put on my master that's got like a saturator and a little bit of EQ and like some basic compression and then a limiter. And that's it. Well, yeah, so it depends a little bit. Like different people have different kinds of setups and the way they like to approach it. So, I have multiple setups. I have some setups where I'm just playing master tracks. I'm just essentially just doing a DJ set with live. And in that situation, I don't need to do anything. No matter what you're doing, put a limiter on your master. This is like such important. This is so important because whenever you're on stage, and anytime you're on stage, anything that can possibly go wrong will go wrong at some point. So you might have everything perfect and you're like, I'm feeling super confident about your set. And then like, some drunk person walks on the stage and like unplugs your microphone or like drops your microphone and you get like a big feedback noise or something like that, right? Put the limiter there because that way the audio going to the sound guy or going to the PA won't go above 0 dB. Yeah, so generally when you're producing, I don't recommend having a limiter on your master. I don't think it's a good thing to do, just as a habit. But when you're performing on stage, whether you're doing a DJ set or you're doing a live performance set or whatever, put a limiter on your master, just in case, because you never know what will happen. And this will prevent bad things from happening because at some point, something like that will happen to you. And you don't want the audience to all go deaf because somebody shoved a microphone into the speaker and it just made a feedback noise. Yeah, Kennedy, Live is a fantastic DJ device. I use it to DJ all the time, and it's super fun and it's easy, and it makes a big difference. I like it better than DJing with anything else, really. But I might be biased about that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you might be like keyword. Yeah, you accidentally hit the volume and like boom, it goes up to plus 6 dB, and all the audience hates you for it, right? So keeping that limiter there is really, really important. But yeah, so for my DJ sets, just the limiter on the master. For my more kind of improvisational live performance setups where I'm doing stems and things like that, I will have like a really basic generic, nothing too fancy mastering chain on the master. And that way all the stems at least kind of sound compressed a little bit with each other and saturated a little bit. But yeah, that's a good question. I generally find that like if you're playing with stems, I think that by itself is way cooler than just playing master tracks. And nobody in the audience can tell a difference between a master track and a not master track. Like they're just not going to, unless you play a master track and then a not master track back to back, and then they'll notice. But if you're just playing on master tracks, you can't tell the difference because it's all relative. So that's kind of the way I feel about it. Yeah, so you got a one or two man band set up, singing and playing bass, have a synth play live, have backing tracks, and be able to tweak parameters live for some variants. Yeah, exactly. Those kinds of setups. Just put like probably something, even something that looks a little bit like this as like boom, this is your mastering chain, and then just kind of tweak these settings, you know, give it a little bit of drive. Pick a setting you like, find the right kind of threshold for based on how your tracks are mixed. Run it through the limiter a little bit if you need to, and be like, boom, that's all you really need. As long as you don't have parts that sound way too quiet and parts that sound way too loud, this will help kind of keep everything kind of tucked in that nice range. And you could do what I did before and do like a multi-band version of these two if you wanted to. But I wouldn't stress too much about doing mastering for something like that. It's going to be way more trouble than it's worth to try to master stems and do all that, I think. But yeah, that's a really good question. Also a fantastic question. So when bands with this kind of performance set up, load a new project file for each song, or did they dump the whole set into one file? In general, I would say a hefty percentage of the time, everything is in one project. Because you don't want to have to open a project and close a project while you're on stage. That to me sounds like a recipe for disaster. You want the music to flow as much as possible, so you just keep everything all put together in one place, and then that way you just the show keeps going. And if you want to like, you know, play one song into the next, everything's all in one place. Usually, that's not a big deal if you're just doing stems and things like that. If you want to, you can check out the video I made on the Glitch Mob live setup. That's also my live setup. Really, it's my live setup that's just based off the Glitch Mob. And you can kind of see that like you can have these really big project files that are huge, and it'll be fine. And they work totally well, as long as you don't go too crazy with processing. Yeah, harmonic minor is the best. I don't know why anybody plays in anything but harmonic minor. Sweet. Well, if there's anybody who is just joining us, and if you have any questions about making music with Ableton Live, feel free to let me know in the chat. If you are enjoying what's going on, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe if this is your first time around here. Feel free to check out some of the videos released. Also, feel free to check out the Discord and the Patreon, all that kind of stuff. If you want more of me talking about live, then you're already getting. So yeah, so I'm just gonna play with this guy a little bit more. I think that like, I'm not sure if I like this guy more as like a monophonic synth or as a polyphonic synth. I suppose I could get off the harmonic and go off the bass. The legato time is very large to start with. All right, let's get a little bit of LFO on this bad boy. All right, let's put a little bit on the tang, I guess. So Kenny's asking, what's my favorite thing to use with Ableton Live 11? It's definitely the new piano roll scales. That's a good question. I'm trying to think of like I've been using 11 for like a year now, since one of the betas, and so it's hard to remember like what is an 11 that wasn't in 10 that I use all the time. I like a lot of the MPE stuff. I'm still kind of working on like integrating the MPE. I like a lot of the new devices. That was like one of the big things for me. The spectral stuff I think is really cool, and I still feel like even after a year, I'm just kind of like scratching the surface on those guys. Oh yeah, and hybrid reverb. Probably hybrid reverb, hands down, best part 11. Like I think that hybrid reverb on its own is going to be the best reason. Oh, and racks, hybrid reverb and racks. Now that I'm like remembering all the things that I like, all the new rack features. So the 12 rack or macro racks, or the random control, the snapshots, those plus hybrid reverb are the things that I think, now that I have them, I don't want to be without them. Yeah, hybrid reverb's pretty awesome. All right, let's take this and put a runa on it, see what happens. Yeah, drum rack is so good. Drum rack is just a all-around fantastic device for any situation. The dry wet on this thing is super harsh. Like I have barely any on the dry wet, and it still sounds very, very distorted. All right, getting too noisy. We'll have to come back to that. A little less noise here. I think the Saw X here is probably my least favorite of these guys. All right, let's try something different. Oh, that sounds cool. Speaking of hybrid reverb, I think this would sound cool with a hybrid reverb. Username, I have done a little bit of micro tuning in live, specifically because somebody asked me to show them how to do it. But I've not really done a lot of it for myself. So I've mostly just kind of like messed around with Max for live devices and options you can do for micro tuning. But to me, micro tuning seems like, again, one of those things where it's quite a bit of work and not a lot of payoff off of the work that you're doing with it. But I'd be curious to hear what kind of solutions you're looking at for that kind of thing. Oh, what's up, Chapati? How you been? It has been a while, I feel like. I feel like this thing is really cool for doing pads. Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's a super esoteric kind of thing you need to have around. Thank you so much, Chapati. I appreciate it. Technically, it wasn't like a real wedding situation. We just got all the paperwork done because we were sick of waiting for COVID. Theoretically, we'll have like a real celebration with lots of people in the springtime, but I appreciate it. Yeah, Iranian music is dope. All like the Central Asian music stuff is like, there's so many cool techniques and tools for making music that like we just don't even think about when we're making music. Tripathi, this is a synthesizer, free plugin synthesizer made by Noise Engineering called the Veror. That I've been kind of screwing around with a little bit, as well as a few of the other plugins they made. And it's really sick. I like it. And I went through a whole thing early in the stream talking a bit about each one of them. And so now I'm just kind of screwing around and making some noises with it, trying to see what it can do. Right now, just making some weird kind of ambient pad kind of things. The oscillators are so interesting. They move differently than other oscillators. Actually sounds pretty cool. All right, let's make something not as ambient. Let's make something like kind of plucky. Less noisy. I feel like you could kind of do some almost like physical modeling kind of sounds with this thing. A little bit more decay here. That sounds like collision. Yeah, for only having 3 parameters for each oscillator, there's a lot of diversity you can get out of these things, which I think is really cool. I think it's a sign of like a well-designed synth. I love the flutter you get in there. That's kind of cool. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I would put amp on something like this unless I was specifically going for more of like a guitar sound. If like I wanted to take this and make it sound less like a metallic percussive instrument, I would put amp on that for sure. We've been playing around a bit. We've been playing around a bit with distortion already today, but definitely put some saturator on here. I put some reverb on it. Oh, this is probably too much. Let me dial this back, dial this down, dial this down. Put some soft sign on that. I love that release. I think it sounds pretty good. Oh, that's too much reverb. Let's turn the reverb down a tiny bit. Let's go back and bump up the chorus. I don't know why, but when I hold down the note, I guess I do know why. The way the ADSR responds to MIDI is really interesting to me. Or the way we hear it is really interesting. So if I hold down the note, it sustains it basically in a volume, and then when I let go, I get the release. But if I just play it quickly, it just goes right to the release, and I get the whole release. So I can kind of like mute my notes by playing longer notes versus just holding it down to play. Or if I quickly play, it plays longer notes, but if I hold it down, it plays shorter notes. Which I think is cool. I mean, it's not really unexpected behavior, but the way it's coming out in this sound, I think it sounds pretty awesome. Man, I like this thing a lot. It sounds really cool. All right, let's try a few presets, and then I think we're gonna call it for the day, just because I think we got through plenty of content. I talked a lot about these guys. That one sounds dope. I like that one. All right. Cool. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I think I'm going to head out for the evening. I will be back tomorrow for a Patreon-only production stream where I'll probably be taking these tools that I've been playing around with today and integrate them into making some tracks, especially distortion. I was planning on doing like an IDM track this week. And now that I've been playing around with this, I'm going to probably postpone the IDM track for this week and do a more kind of noise, just see what I can do with the distortion from the Runa. And that's going to be my project for the week. But I'll be working on that tomorrow on stream. If you are a Patreon member, you can check that out. Otherwise, I'll be back on Wednesday for a song feedback stream. So yeah, so hopefully I will see you guys real soon. I'm probably going to make a video on the Runa this week just because I'm really excited to talk about it because I think it's really cool. So you guys have a good evening. Take care of yourself, make some music, and I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.